Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Friday with Friends. Today's friend, Judy Rodgers, professional writer, media consultant, and the founder of Images of Voices and Hope, and a longtime meditator, maybe over 25 years of practicing, teaching, and being a student of Raja Yoga. Hello, Judy.
Hello, Craig.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
It's wonderful to meet you. It's really nice to be with you. I've heard about you, but we've never met.
I've heard about you and seen you and appreciate your work and your sincerity. So today's title is The Art of Listening, which I understand you've done some amount of work on. First question, why the art of listening?
Well, I mean, on one level, everybody's a listener, right? I mean, everyone's a talker, everyone's a listener. So if you don't take it to the level of art, you're just kind of in the human experience. But what often happens is actually, if you ask people, most people don't feel listened to most of the time. If you say to them, when they come out of a meeting, did you feel you got your point across, or did you feel that others heard you? Generally, no, they don't. A lot of people feel overlooked, or like someone talked over them, or all of this. So when you move listening to an art, you're really taking it to the level where people feel valued, where people feel honored, where people feel understood, seen, heard, etc. And so it's high praise that you can pay to someone by listening to them. And it's high praise when someone says to you after, I feel heard on this, which doesn't happen that much.
What just came to my mind is I'll give certain words, and then in terms of listening, how listening relates to the words that I say. Okay. Listening and teaching.
Well, I think when we teach, we aren't really attuned to what other people are necessarily hearing. We're about what we're going to say often.
What part does listening take in leadership?
Well, I think we have to say, what part does listening play in good leadership, in elevated leadership? And
yes.
Because a lot of leaders are dreadful listeners, and most people, honestly, most people, when they're in a conversation, they're holding on to the thing they want to say. Right? They want the other person to finish because they've got something they want to say. And so listening is really, kind of secondary for a lot of leaders because they feel they've got an important message to get across. That's the way they hold it. I have to let people know this. They're counting on my vision, which is true, right? It's true that they're counting on the leader's vision, but there's a famous listener in history. Eleanor Roosevelt is considered to be an amazing listener. People who had conversations with her felt extremely heard. She would break out in a sweat when she was listening to people, intently focusing on them, following up, clearly catching what they're trying to say. So good leaders, really exceptional leaders, are exceptional listeners. And that means that when they're listening, they're really listening to understand, what is this soul trying to say? Even if the person doesn't communicate so clearly, even if the communication itself is a bit flawed, a really good listener, we would call it being in soul consciousness. We would say, I, the listener, am connected with the self inside. I am connected with the self inside of the one who's speaking. And I am in a state of generosity, you might say, right? I've got plenty of time. I care about who you are, and I really want to know what you would like to say right now. What are you trying to get across? And
I
so,
like that idea of
yeah.
generosity.
Hmm.
I mean, that touches me when I hear you say that. And I was just think as you kind of even answered the question I was having in my own mind, that what is it that what do I have listening sounds great. I'd love to be a good listener, but what skill set do I need to have to listen? And you mentioned soul consciousness. Can you give me any more viewpoint on what skills I need to develop or acquire or use in order to be a more effective listener?
Mm. Well, soul consciousness includes a number of things, right? So one aspect of it is patience, because not everyone is, well, for one thing, even if someone is articulate and super clear, there's often something living beneath the words. So there's patience. I think generosity, as I said, benevolence. I have a big heart and I really want to know what you're trying to say. Also, self-awareness, because we are not neutral, right? We listen from our experience. We listen from where we've been. So I may think I know what you're saying when you explain something that happened to you, but I'm listening as a female, right? I'm listening as a person who's had certain kinds of experiences. I'm listening as an American. I'm listening as someone whose orientation and education was a certain way. So I'll hear something that I think you're meaning to say. But if I have self-awareness, then I know there's a limit to my listening. And if I'm patient and I'm really trying to hear you and I'm generous, then what I may do is say, okay, here's what I heard. Is that what you meant to say? And then they can either say, yes, or no, 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 that's not where I was going.
Oh, that is very patient,
Yeah.
because it seems, and you're a media expert, and so you see the world that we live in. That it appears to me that all the social media is based upon me just waiting for my chance to say what I want to say and not even listen to you. And so our communicate, even though the means of communication have increased so much, our quality of communication doesn't seem to be going in the same direction. Is that fair to say?
I think that is fair to say. Although, you know, I would say that some people really work at it. Some people really try to be attentive. And one thing that helps is if you're comfortable with silence, because I think a lot of people want to fill up the space that's available. As soon as you stop talking, I feel I need to say something, even if I don't have anything particular to say. But if I'm okay with silence, then when there's a space in what you're saying, I can just be with you, right? I can just sit with you and be with you. And you may then think of something else you want to say that comes into that silence. And then I could even say, can I say something, or are you finished, or did you want to say more about that? So listening isn't just sit there with your mouth closed. Sometimes you're really encouraging someone to come forward, especially if the topic is uncomfortable, especially if they're in a territory where they're not certain that you're going to be able to hear what they want to say, or it's a painful subject, right?
So maybe another word that comes up, listening, and just tell me what you think when you hear this word, listening and trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say trust on both sides, right? Trust on the part of the speaker. What I, as a listener, am trying to do is to make the speaker feel safe.
So
Right.
that they can also explore the uncomfortable borders that they've normally had. So you're really creating just like any teaching, the first thing you have to do is create an environment of security,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't feel secure, nothing can happen.
Yeah, that's right.
So maybe listening is really a good starting place for someone to feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's literal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
I have another, listening and intuition.
Well, this kind of takes us back to the territory of soul consciousness, right? And silence. So I may sense that you want to say something. I may have an inner kind of knowing that you're in a territory that's uncomfortable for you, or that you're hoping for something from me. And so that's where the art comes in, to go back to your first question. So I have to ask myself, what do we want out of this, the speaker and I? Do we want harmony? Do we want clarity? Do we want to solve something? So this is kind of the territory of intuition and benevolence. So what I would say is, as a listener, I'm really wanting for you to get out of it what you were hoping when we sat down. So, and if I'm not clear, I can say, tell me, what are you hoping for from this time we have together? What would success look like? What would you like to have happen? And then if they say, well, I just want to get this off my chest, okay. Or I want to clear something up. I think you don't understand something. Okay. And so then as a listener, they may say things that I find challenging. They may say things that either they think I don't get them, or they think I've been unhelpful in the past, or they think that my position of authority is threatening to who they are, etc., etc. They may say all kinds of things that I don't agree with. And if you have a good meditation practice, then you'll be able to stay quiet and hold that space and that benevolent vision. That's okay. That's where they're coming from. That's their experience. I accept that. There may be truth in that. I might be not hearing them completely. I might have some biases here. So I'm able to hold that. And instead of reacting, which is our temptation, right? Let me interrupt you here. I want to set this straight, right? Instead of that, then, and this is again the art, I'm listening. And when they pause, I might say, okay, let me make sure I've got it clear. You don't think I've heard you in the past, and you're not sure I'm able to hear you because of who I am. Is that right?
Everything that you're saying, it shows a lot of care for the speaker. That I have to be kind of secure in myself enough to maybe, the listener also has to take a chance, not just the speaker's taking a chance, but the listener's taking a chance by not reacting.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge in itself. It's a challenge to truly be an effective listener, because maybe I think not feeling heard is kind of a global issue. And just listening to you speak, I would say maybe this is really the key to diplomacy. That listening and with an apparent antagonist is the same thing. What's your take on someone who sees you as their antagonist and don't feel that way? What skills do I need to keep myself from reacting to what they're saying?
Well, I think I have to come into it wanting to understand their needs, because usually that antagonism comes because I need something and you're not getting it. I, the speaker, am trying to convey something that is really important to me that I need, and you're not getting it, or you're not caring. So I, as the listener, have to try to understand what is necessary for the other person in this conversation. What would make it successful for them? What are they hoping for? what is it that is in the way between us being able to understand one another? And so I might have to ask, as a listener, you sometimes have to ask questions. Sometimes you have to say, help me understand what you are hoping for from this time together. And help me understand anything that's in the way, anything you feel is in the way between our reaching mutual respect and understanding. And don't worry about hurting my feelings. I'm okay. So you tell
Well,
me.
I think that's an important
Yeah.
part that makes the other, I had once a student say to me that the teaching gave them permission to misbehave. They didn't know how to express it any other way. And I said, that's exactly right, is that you feel free to experiment because we're not used to being like that. We tend to always go down the same path we've always gone down, even when it's not working for us.
So that's
And
a good
so
question. That was
we've
quite
explored, I think, listening in terms of with other people, but how about just in terms of myself? Like, what's the relationship between, what would you say, between listening and meditation?
well. I think we often can't hear our true selves. We have a constructed self that's called the ego that is often pretty fragile. If you don't see me as beautiful, if you don't see me as important, if you don't see me as worthy or whatever, then I'm not going to be okay. Right? Whereas with the true self, the inner self, the kind of self that is eternal, I know I'm okay. I know I'm valuable. I know that I'm fine as I am. And whatever you think of me is on you, right? It's whatever, wherever you are. But then I am in that place. And when I'm in the place of the true self, I can hear when there's something going on in the heart. I would say that real listening is often listening to one's heart, because the heart knows. The heart knows if I'm jealous. The heart knows if I'm sad. The heart knows if I'm disappointed. And if I can get beyond the constructed self, I'll feel that inside. And when I know that that's going on, then that's the work of the meditation, right? The meditation is then to help me clear those things, to help me remove that feeling of looking at others and competing with them, or remove the feeling of, so I did something so wrong it can never be forgiven, or someone did something to me so wrong it can never be forgiven. All of those things that lodge in the heart prevent us from actually being in our true self. So the meditator, then, that's their work, right?
It sounds like a cure to me. And also, no matter how long that we're at the study, it continues to reap new fruit, and the path gets clearer. And I really see there's such a deep relationship between just availing myself to listen to my heart. So what I'm already getting from my talk with you are care, generosity, patience. Listen to your heart.
Beautiful.
That works in so I'm learning to listen.
I suspect you already were a good listener, Craig.
It's self-interest to listen, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's an understanding that's coming to me, that it's for myself, it's for my benefit to listen, because maybe I'm feeling off because I haven't listened. And in order to learn, it's better to use listening than the speaking. That kind of lets everyone know how I'm feeling, but I really don't want to stay in that state. I'd like to have an alter, listening and silence.
Yeah.
I want you to tell me what comes up for you when you put together those two words, listening and silence.
Well, listening is a kind of inner silence, right? So I make myself silent inside. That means I make my mind silent. And then in that silence, then I attune myself to the best in you. And then in that silence, even if you are frustrated, even if you are upset, even if you feel wronged, and even if you're at a high emotional peak, I should be able in that inner silence to not only hear you, but to also sort of emanate a vibration of reassurance that you're good. You know, it's okay to be upset. It's okay for things not to feel right now, but I'm listening to you. I'm getting you. You're lovely. You'll be fine.
That sounds like the highest level of teaching to me. And I was just thinking, I know that you've written books and you've been around a lot of very powerful people. In order to write a book about someone or something that they're saying, it means you've done a lot of listening yourself.
Mhm.
And so what a benefit that you've experienced through your association with some of these great souls that we both know, of being able to channel in a way to bring it from the voice to the page is really an act of listening. So all those, it's an understanding. I guess also a listener is someone, you have to have insight in order to listen. You have to know that there's value in order to listen. So just finding value is an adventure. An adventure.
Sounds like you have done a lot of listening as a teacher. Sounds like you were a very skilled teacher.
I think the listening is teaching. That's my experience of more than anything else, is just a listener, because well, if you just put yourself in the times that there might be someone who's really impacted you, you might not recall what they said, but you do recall how they made you feel.
Mhm.
And that feeling is always, you felt important to that soul. And thereby, if an elevated soul thinks I'm important, I must be more important than I previously thought. And so then we're just we're passing it on to the next thing, and that's a wonderful thing.
Mhm.
And how can I do that without listening? I think we've about used up all our time for the chatting part, and I know that I feel pretty filled up with what you've shared. Can you kind of consolidate it into like a 3-minute meditation commentary that we could all kind of reflect upon and use our inner listening to kind of churn that through?
All right. My throat's a little dry, so I'll be a little essenceful here. So, sitting quietly, I become aware of everything that's going on around me. And I notice and I let it go. And then turning inside, I become aware of all the things going on inside. Thoughts, agendas, memories, feelings. I notice all of it. And I invite it to become quiet. In particular, I notice my heart, because the heart gives refuge to things that have happened. It gives refuge to memories and experiences. And so sometimes the heart changes my listening. If there's sorrow in my heart, I may listen through my sorrow. If there's anger in my heart, or blame, or guilt, I may listen through my anger, or my blame, or my guilt. So I invite my heart to release all of those things and to become quiet. So I bring my mind to peace, and with a clean heart, I turn my attention inside to what the soul is most hoping for. And I know that the true self is hoping to be useful, to serve, to be valued. And to be able to create a high level of connection with those I love. So in order to do these things, I listen in the inner stillness for the song of the heart. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti to that. Judy, thank you so very much from really the bottom of my heart for your sincere, while you were offering the meditation, I envisioned you as a small child with that pure heart and pure hopes. And I wanted to congratulate you on achieving that, which you so long ago set out to do. And it's right here, and it's a pleasure speaking with you. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Joy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Om Shanti and goodbye. Mita, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.